For everyone making this meeting possible. My name's Stephen. I'm a compulsive eater. Just sort of like I'm always happy to say yes to sharing, and usually it's about 10 seconds before I suddenly have a huge wave of panic and anxiety come over me. Like my heart is racing like crazy all of a sudden. I find saying that out loud usually makes it go away probably in about 5 minutes time. Yeah, I'm so pleased to be here. This is one of my favorite places in the world, and it's quite interesting because it's a virtual space. Um, I came to OA a little over 2 years ago. I heard someone liken compulsive eating, compulsive overeating, or addiction in general to being like you're in an elevator and it's only going in one direction, which is down. There are no buttons in there, so you don't get to decide when you come out. And as what happened to me, I would have moments where the doors would open. So I'm in that elevator in my compulsive eating, just stuck in it. It would open, I'd get spat out, and I'd get these moments of grace where I was found space from my compulsive, for the most part, just the horrific binge eating. And the issue was that and this was pre-OA, I would get this realization like, oh my God, this has to stop. This has to stop. Um, Nothing would change. I wouldn't change. I wouldn't really do anything about it. So maybe in that lobby, there's a book about CBT or about binge eating or a personal trainer, all these different things, food therapist, that I would sort of tap into in a sort of light touch way. But the kind of allure of that elevator and the peace of mind that came with the perceived peace of mind that came with going back to the food was too much. And what I didn't realize before coming into OA was I'm completely powerless over my disease, like utterly. So my head would tell me, well, my what would happen pre-OA was it was basically abstinence from really specific food types, and I sort of thought that that was enough to sort of keep me well. And then I would have either a bad day or a good day or a nothing day or just a day. And I would have a strong urge to pick up this type of food again or whatever the behavior might be at that time. And every time I thought I could get away with it, every time I was convinced I could get away with it. Um, so then I was back in the elevator, doors slammed shut, going back down again, no buttons on the wall. So again, I do not get to decide when I get off. Once more, doors open, I'm back out again, and I'm graced with a period of clarity. And I think to myself, I'm going to go to OA. I didn't want to come to OA. There was all these things I knew about OA. You're going to make me write down, list and list of food that I wasn't allowed to have. You were going to make me weigh myself and do all sorts of things that I felt were counter to. Anyway, the point is, everything I thought I knew about this place, I was 100% wrong. And what I was presented with was a really painfully simple solution to my disease of compulsive overeating that I thought I would never get away from. Um, I've tried doing it three ways in OA. One first was trying to work a program without a sponsor, coming to meetings, um, camera on, sharing, reading, the literature and getting really, really hyper focused on the food plan and being like, there it is. First, I detested the idea, and I was like, there it is. There's my higher power. I just need to think about and obsess about what I'm going to eat every day for the rest of my life. That'll be the solution. And that was, of course, me weaponizing the program because what I just described is not written anywhere, or suggested by anyone, at least anyone that I've come across. and it didn't work. I thought that obsessive day counting would keep me abstinent. Um, it didn't work. When I came into OA, I was, in that last time when I sort of got that grace period, I'd started working with like a personal trainer. I'd watched some, crappy YouTube videos about warped perspective of nutrition. I thought I had it down. Um, so it was almost a little bit harder for me to kind of admit that powerlessness and that unmanageability. But the fact of the matter is, no matter what I was doing, my behaviors, not just in and around the food, was still completely wacky. But I was starting to really crack in my life. I mean, I had been, but the cracks were starting to show. I had this sort of last few years, this sort of beautiful relationship begun. I've become a part of a family. These stepkids come into my life, and I was not capable of managing the life that I felt I'd been gifted by God, And I came to understand at some point that I would lose these things if I didn't rein this in, So that was the sort of part of the desperation that brought me in to OA. The second way that I tried to do it was by working with a sponsor, but not taking suggestions or not taking all of the suggestions, and that didn't work either. There was, I think, a period of time where I thought I was doing what was being suggested, but on reflection, I sort of really wasn't. And it turns out the suggestions are relatively simple. For me, it was to go to meetings, get two service positions, prayer and meditation, do the step work, outreach calls, and a plan of eating at the start of the day. And as I kept on coming sort of in and out, not getting it, um, picking up again, I came to realize that the chances of that elevator door opening back up for me again were going to get less and less because the sort of the craziness of the disease was getting worse and worse. And this was after coming into OA. It felt like I kind of dropped off a cliff edge, and it scared the hell out of me. Um, that was the thing that really sort of beat me into willingness. And what's interesting is it's not like I had to get beaten down to become willing to do some crazy thing. It's like, okay, now you're willing, you're gonna have to sell your home and you have to move to Tibet, start meditating on top of a mountain, and then you get abstinence. The missing piece of the puzzle was honesty. It was just that. The day I started to get honest with my sponsor, I have not I've maintained abstinence ever since. And what that honesty looked like was when I'm going to change my plan of eating and let them know. That was it. That was the missing part of the puzzle. Uh, that makes it difficult. It's like I let them know no matter what. So if I'm going to change, something nice and green for something nice and green, it's like, oh, that's easy. But when my sort of food plan goes from a sort of these meals to some sort of whacked out huge list of terrible, terrible things for me. Even then, I have to be honest. And once I started doing that, the abstinence came. That was the last piece of the puzzle for me. I don't get to decide if I'm abstinent. And that list of things that I reeled off that my sponsor suggested, abstinence wasn't on there because it's not within my control to pull that off. That is in comes from a power greater than myself. Um, it's the only way that I've ever experienced it. I don't know exactly how it works still. So I really wish I could fill in a really helpful sentence here. But what I found was when I did those suggested things, I'm not powerless over picking up the phone. I'm not powerless over being honest about my food plan. I'm not powerless over coming to a meeting, turning my camera on and engaging with fellows. Um, unless my camera's broken. So I can apply a lot of willpower to those things, and I do. I apply a lot of willpower to my program. I just don't apply it to the food because it would be senseless. It didn't work before. There's no reason it would work now. So I put my time and my energy into all those suggested things, including working the steps. My life is completely transformed. I don't really have time, I guess, to go into what it is, but I have this sort of beautiful relationships now. You know, I got married last year in abstinence. I'm a better husband. I'm a better parent. I'm not constantly in a state of fear and worry and anxiety. My life is kind of splendid. This is the word that comes to mind. And what I heard a lot when I was listening to a lot of shares in the early days was people saying like they kept on spinning out, going back out there, round and round and round. Um, Michelle, is that 52 seconds till 12 minutes or 52 seconds till 15
Yes,
minutes?
it's okay. It's just till 12. It's the first time
Oh,
I've
okay.
used the
All right.
timer.
Oh,
Bear with me. So
okay.
you've got
Bonus,
14
some
minutes left.
bonus time.
Thank you.
I was like, gosh, that was quick. When I put down the food, I felt like I was having to learn how to do and feel everything for the first time. And I really try not to exaggerate, but that feels like a pretty accurate statement. So it was pretty interesting. And let alone, obviously, there's the example of learning how to eat again. You know, I remember this time in early abstinence, I was super obsessed about what I couldn't eat. And I went to a restaurant with my wife, and I was feeling pretty jittery in a way. And there was something on the menu that for the most part was all good, but there was an ingredient on that plate that was just troubling me, and I said very politely to the waiters, like, I'd love to have this, but could you just substitute this for this, please? And they just said no. And I sort of asked again politely, and they said, no, we just can't do it. And it just like hit me to my core, and I started crying. And I had to sort of go to the bathroom and sort of get on my knees and pray about it because I was so I felt so fragile and raw in those early days. I didn't know how to handle even sort of situations like that, and I can sort of laugh about it now, and I was laughing about it pretty quickly then. But that's a sort of example of how I felt like I was sort of trying to build everything back up again. That's a little bit of an exaggeration, but that's what it felt like. Yeah, so I heard a lot of shares in my early days where people were saying they were in and out, round and round and round and round, and sometimes for like years and years. And then they found a sort of big book solution of going through the steps. And I listened really carefully to that. And as I said, because I felt like I'd dropped off a cliff and things were just getting like from bad to worse, that desperation really made me listen to what those people were suggesting. And I found a sponsor that took me through the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, working through the steps in a sort of very clear cut and methodical way, which is exactly what I needed. And what I learned from them was not to be sponsor reliant, not to be self-reliant, not even to be like fellowship reliant, but to be God reliant. And a bit like the abstinence that I have, I don't have like an Ethernet cable connector on me that I can just plug into the wall and then I'm like jacked into God. I don't find it that easy, but it's simple. Again, those suggested things, when I do them, I get connected to a power greater than myself, whatever it may be. So I really do, and I guess I'm just reiterating this because it's the absolute crux of my program. And when I found myself in my early days wondering why can't I get it, I had to ask myself like a really, really simple checklist. It's like, well, I wasn't asking myself this, but I would now. Am I working with a sponsor? If not, then I don't even know where to begin with my disease because I can't solve this myself. And then probably number two is like, am I doing what my sponsor suggests? That might well be the sort of the crux of the things that got me to this point. So thank you very much.